So Lawrence is the co-founder with Taylor of Ambient. We've got lots to share about Lawrence. You can check out our AI in the C-suite panel for more information, but just know, super smart guys developed a really great tool for specifically C-suite users, chiefs of staff. I'm using it. I love it. I am now in a position where I'm like, oh shoot, where did those notes go? And I'm going and finding my notes all the time. So I think you're gonna like this. And with that, I'm gonna go on mute myself and pass it over to Lawrence.
Thanks, Maggie, and thank you everyone for making time for us in the middle of the day. One thing I know about this group is that it's a busy group, and so the fact that you all made time means a lot to us. I also recognize a lot of friendly names and faces on the call, so it's good to see you all again. So we're going to talk about a couple big topics. This is meant to be sort of a roll up your sleeves, hands-on workshop. We're talking about the category of AI note-taking, how these tools work, what are the information security topics that you should have top of mind, what are the behavioral topics that you should have top of mind, and then at the end or in the middle, we're actually going to go hands-on to onboarding, and we can get our arms around kind of how these products work. All right, and so I'm going to share my screen, and then let me just, Taylor, can I get a thumbs up if you can see everything okay? Great. Okay, so let's dive in. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is that the AI note-taking category is exploding, and there's a reason for that, is that AI is really, really good at this stuff. It tends to be better than you or I. It tends to save massive amounts of time. It tends to make it easier for you to focus on running the meeting, participating in the meeting, than taking the notes. It's hard to do both. And so I think there's about 15 or so venture-funded companies or public companies in this category. Reed is a good one that we know from the Zoom ecosystem. They do sentiment analysis stuff. Obviously, Zoom and Microsoft had their own horses in the race. Otter is a great team. Fireflies is a great team. There's a lot of good products in this category. And what I would encourage you to do, try them out. They're all a little bit different. They tend to be general purpose AI note takers. I know Reed is really into sentiment analysis, for example, detecting how people are feeling on the calls. So each one of these has their own advantages and their own disadvantages. But I think the big thing to know is that if you haven't tested some sort of an AI note taker, you really should, because the ROI is so clear. Okay, the product that we're going to go a little deeper on today is called Ambient. It's the one that Taylor and I co-founded. It's similar in architecture and how it works, how it interacts with the large language model. You can think about Ambient as an AI task manager more than a note taker, but similarly, structurally, architecturally, it works very similarly. It listens to your meetings, it pulls out the next steps, it helps you visualize those next steps in a way that you can prioritize them, you can triage them, you can route them to fewer balls. If you are on 5, 7, 12 Zoom calls a day or Teams calls or Google Meet calls, you probably get to the end of the day and your mind is mush. You have a list of stuff you have to do. You're going through your notes. AI can be a backstop for you. And that's the product that we're going to dive into today. So before we do that, and I shared this with my engineering team last night, and they kind of laughed. But this is, I want to walk you through how these systems work so that if your principal, if your CIO asks you, like, what is happening with these ambient bots that are showing up at our meeting, or these Otter meeting recorders that show up, I want you to have the high level understanding of how they work. And so here's how the general flow goes. So if you see a bot, assistant, recorder in your meeting, what that thing is doing is it's actually recording the meeting. It's recording the meeting. We'll talk about data privacy, confidentiality in a second. But with that recording, companies like Ambient can generate a transcript. So we're taking the recording, we're using software to generate the words in the recording, And then the next sort of magical step is that we are wrapping that transcript in our special sort of chief of staff prompting. And I know you've heard these words like prompting. You can think about prompting as the spell book to talk to these large language models like OpenAI to get back answers, to get back assets. So you can think about our prompting as literally a series of words that sounds like this. You are a wise and experienced chief of staff. You care about taking accurate notes, but what you care most about is generating a structured list of next steps and action items with timelines and project owners. You will deliver me a structured table of the next steps from this call, and it will be presented in front of everything else, in front of the summary. So that's not the exact words, but we're basically wrapping these prompts with the transcript, and then we send it to OpenAI. And so the model that we use is the most advanced model in the world. It's GPT-4. It's owned by OpenAI. There's lots of other models out there. There's Google Gemini, there's Anthropic, there's Cohere. There's lots of models to choose from. OpenAI is generally considered the category leader. Microsoft owns about half of OpenAI. Microsoft has endorsed OpenAI with, I think, $10 billion, something like that. And they also run OpenAI models on their Azure infrastructure. So that is why we chose OpenAI, the most secure. Okay, so what happens then? OpenAI is then sending a response, and that response is a series of assets. It's the notes, it's the next steps. It could be a list of the blockers. It could be a list of the questions. It's really a structured list of anything that we ask you. And any of the other vendors on this screen have their own special prompting and their own focus on the things that they are asking for. All right, so let's review. Every time you summon an AI assistant to your live meeting, whether it's Zoom, Google Meet, Teams, that AI assistant is generating a recording. That recording goes to your vendor. They generate a transcript. They wrap the transcript in their special prompting, and this is like the trade secret kind of stuff. It goes over to OpenAI, and I know in our case, we are sending a series of jobs, like one after the other, to get exactly the results that we want. The assets come back, and they are visualized to you, the customer, the user. So this is the broad structure. And so I would say anybody have questions, but we're going to hold questions for the end. But these are how these systems work. And so hopefully after this call, you will be able to speak at a reasonably high level of expertise to your CIO, to your CEO, to anyone in the C-suite who wants to understand what are these bots or recorders doing in my meeting. Okay, so here's how I think about the ROI. And this is why I believe there's 15 or more strong AI note takers, is because the ROI today is very clear. These services happen to be right in the sweet spot of what the AI models can do today, which is rapidly grok massive amounts of data and generate nice, clean summaries. So the ROI for you for services like this are time savings not so you can sort of kick back and go to the ice cream store. It's time savings so you can focus on the things that only you can do, the strategic stuff, the M&A, the corporate development, the special project, the stuff that's truly moved the dial. Let AI automate the important but menial tasks. The second major area of ROI that I see, and this is one that I live by, is like, I'm the co-founder of my company. And if I drop things, it's catastrophic. I consider myself the last line of defense on big things and little things facing the company, along with my co-founder, Taylor. And so what AI does for me at the end of the day, when I'm exhausted and 15 people have thrown me each 5 things that I need to do, I get a list. And I'll show you what this looks like, but this is my backstop. It's like, and imagine you are running your staff meeting and you're facilitating and you're facilitating the conversation. It's very hard to keep a detailed list of the next steps while you do that. You shouldn't have to get an AI backstop. Yeah, and the next sort of big thing is like I think we're just starting to move into is this idea of like this AI sort of zoom out, godlike view of massive amounts of data that can say, hey, Taylor, you should really ask this question as you facilitate this meeting. Here are 3 topics that you don't want to miss. Here's a couple of blockers that have been percolating around. Could you do this? Of course you could, but it would take you hours and hours and hours. You could go back through all of the recordings for the last 50 meetings. You could do a quick report on the big things, or you could have AI do it for you in 45 seconds. And so there's a powerful operating model here of AI as a co-pilot for you to help you excel at your job. And the last sort of emerging use case here that is very meeting specific is that I have started sending my Ambient summarizer to meetings that I cannot attend. Maybe I'm double booked, maybe I'm triple booked, maybe I'm on vacation. But if I send my bot, my recorder, my summarizer, I'm going to get back a crisp summary of what happened and who's doing what. And so this is a very powerful thing. And like many people like to joke that the chief of staff or EA has to be in multiple places at the same time. Now you can actually do that. And I'll show you some examples in a second. All right. So I wanted to give you some vivid examples of kind of how these ROI areas are delivered to you. I'm going to use Ambient as an example, but each of the products that I showed you will have their own flavors. In terms of the time savings, yesterday, Taylor and I had a very detailed technical call about data deletion and retention policy. We could have taken notes and they would have been okay, but Ambient just did it automatically. So that's things that we don't have to do so we can focus on bigger areas. So this is pretty straightforward. The time savings of an AI taking notes is time back in your pocket. The second area is that this idea of an AI backstop. And so I mentioned this workflow where I'm on call. People are telling me things that they need to have happen, and I'm jotting them down. Well, now I don't have to jot them down. I don't have to worry about forgetting things. This is from March 5th. I pull up my sheet. It gives me a list of stuff. These are the things that I have to bang out. I only drop balls now because I choose to drop balls. I think in the olden days, 90 days ago, I was probably dropping 10% of the tasks that were coming my way. What does that add up to if the founder is dropping 10% of things every day? It's not great, right? It's not great. Now, I think Taylor and my drop rate has gone down to 0. And what does that mean for operational execution? We'll find out. All right. So in terms of connecting the dots, I wanted to flash a quick screenshot of a new feature we are launching called Meeting Series Management. The idea is pretty simple. Ambient can look back over a whole series of meetings within a recurring meeting and give you the big things you need to know to run a better meeting. So here's an example where the AI is surfacing big topics, blockers, decisions to be made, things that I need to be thinking about as I enter this executive staff meeting. So just imagine that you had this like omnipotent being that's looking back over the history of the transcripts and the recordings and the summaries and saying, hey, Maggie, here's 5 things you need to know going into this meeting. That stuff is available today. All right. And then the last one, I'll give you a sort of a silly example from Taylor and my weekly life is that we are part of the Zoom developer ecosystem, and we're invited to a weekly call of developers every week that are close to the Zoom ecosystem. Typically, we cannot make this call, but we send Ambient. And so we get back a nice summary. And so we know exactly what's happening. So it's literally this ambient awareness of what's happening in the meetings that you are not able to attend. So I call it being 2 places at the same time, but we are getting very close to you having an AI assistant or agent that can represent you in places that you cannot be. You know, a little bit like the chief of staff does for the principal, right? Okay, let's keep going. So this all sounds pretty great. It's really for the folks out there that have tried these tools, and Ambient is one of several. I think we have a very unique take, but any of the AI note takers, it's hard to imagine a world when you're going back. If I'm on a meeting and I don't have my assistant, I get stressed because suddenly I'm on the hook to remember all this stuff, to jot all the notes down, to capture the action. So it all sounds great. Like, what is the catch? Well, there are multiple levels of catch here that you need to be aware of. And so as you look to kind of usher in this age of generative AI, and I think AI note-taking, AI task management is a great place to start, but there's a couple of areas that you need to kind of be sharp on and at least understand the language and some of the remediations that you can take. So the first is the topic of information security. I showed you that chart, right, of how these systems work. Well, your data, your company's data is bouncing all over the place, right? It's going to OpenAI. It's going to your vendor. It's going back to you. There's a lot of transit happening here, and so this is scary. This is stressful, particularly for CIOs. Shala, can you go on mute? And so the good news is the technology industry has answers for this problem. It's the same sort of stuff that came out with cloud hosting. I'm old enough to remember back in the day when CIOs didn't want to host any data with Amazon. Now most of them do, either with AWS or with Azure and Microsoft or with Google Cloud. And so the thing to do is to ask for third-party compliance reports. So the most famous one is SOC 2. We recently went through the SOC 2 process. It is painful as a vendor. It was 6 or 7 months. It was $18,000. We had to write down every one of our processes. We had to write down who gets access to customer data. We had to write down what happens if there's an earthquake. Are your customers' data secure? We had to have third-party auditors come in and try and break into our systems and give us a report about the vulnerabilities. We had to patch those vulnerabilities. And all that is encompassed in a process called SOC 2. So the first thing you should ask your vendor is for their SOC 2 compliance documentation. If you want to go a level deeper, you can ask for the penetration tests that are under the hood. These are the records of what did the auditors find when they tried to break into your vendor systems, and your vendor should provide this. And if they say it's coming, you got to say when, because your CIO is likely not going to be comfortable with any service that has not been audited by third parties. SOC 2 is the gold standard. Okay. There's a second and related article that you should be aware of. Everyone on this call should be aware of, and it's not coming from the CIO. It's coming from your general counsel. And what your if you're at a company bigger than 500 people, your lawyers, your general counsel probably have a big say. They are trying to keep your company out of trouble. And one of the things that we see is that many companies have data deletion policies, which they don't want recordings of live meetings floating around. Imagine that sales call where your sales leader says something either offensive or inappropriate. What your general counsel does not want, I'm not picking on the sales leaders out there, that could come from anyone, though often it's the sales leaders. So what your general counsel does not want to have happen is that video be used in discovery in a lawsuit 5 years from now. So after you get through asking about SOC 2 and penetration tests and information security, you need to ask about data deletion policy. Do I have the ability to automatically, programmatically delete sensitive data either on demand or according to the timeline of my policies? And I'll give you an example. Stripe, it was a powerful company within fintech, as a corporate policy, they do not retain any live video after 14 days. And so that's their policy. They're trying to avoid future lawsuits. It's totally reasonable, totally makes sense. Vendors have to map to that. Okay, very similar, comparable objection, information and security, but they're actually slightly different. And then the last one, I really don't have any easy answers for. It's one that is more behavioral, where when people know they are being recorded, there's a feeling that maybe it changes the spirit of the meeting. Maybe it's awkward to have a big summarizer or assistant in your meeting that's sitting there front and center. I was just on the phone with one of the biggest law firms in Chicago, and the chief of staff was incredibly excited about Ambient. Her principal, a senior partner at the firm, would not go for it. And it's not the legal, because the deletion functionality is there, not storing data and all those kinds of things. It's the social awkwardness of this partner having conversations with customers he's known for years and suddenly bringing this AI assistant on the call. It was just too socially awkward. So do you know who doesn't care about socially awkward? Desperate startups. Desperate startups, and by desperate, I mean all startups that are looking to compete and win. They are willing to trade awkwardness for execution. They are willing to trade awkwardness for operation. They are willing to trade awkwardness for the insurance system that they're going to drop. So I think the balance here is going to come down to the perceived value versus the perceived awkwardness. And every organization is different. I'm not going to make any value judgments here. Every company is organic, and it comes down to probably what your C-suite is comfortable here. And the question is, I know there's lots of comps in the market. 2 years ago, it was a very awkward thing to send a Calendly link to someone. People's reaction frequently to me was, how dare you? Do you know who I am? You want me to schedule time with you? And it would be like, hold on, I'm happy to go back and forth with you on 10 emails, finding you a time, or we can just save some time. Why don't you share your Calendly link and I'll pick the time. And so there was a moment of getting accustomed to new social norms. But I think this is just going to take some time. All right. So we're almost to the point that we're going to go hands-on here, which I'm really excited for. But I'm gonna end sort of the education content here with 3 sort of bonus concepts that you may hear a lot. And if you learn these phrases, it will add a little bit of credibility in your conversations with your CIO, your CTO, your engineering team. So the first phrase is something called human in the loop. And this is a concept where AI can get us 80% of the way there on some task, but it can't get us all the way there yet. It still takes a human's judgment, experience, understanding of nuance, context to polish the content to get it to its final state. And so one of the things that you should look for in all of your AI vendors is there an opportunity to have a human in the loop, and the human probably being you. Someone that can just put eyes on, like, you know what, in that summary, our CEO didn't use that word. That word kind of triggers people around here. We shouldn't use that word. Let me swap it out for another word. And so that sort of last editing polish is this concept of human in the loop. The second concept here, context windows. And so if you follow the space, you're hearing about innovations at the foundational model level where they're able to accept more context, more tokens. What does this mean? It basically means you're able, as a vendor, as a company, you're able to pipe more and more data through these large language models like OpenAI, like Anthropic, and get back responses. And so what does that mean for us? It means that as opposed to having Ambient analyze a single meeting and pull out the next steps, let's have it analyze 6 months of meetings in a series, look at pages and pages and pages and pages of transcripts, zoom out and tell me the 3 things I need to know before I run this meeting. And so that it's a very powerful, the context windows are expanding quickly. Very soon you're going to be able to kind of import movies, like an entire movie, into one of these and have it break it down. So it's something to watch. And then the last term I'm going to throw out here is AI agent. And I consider Ambient in the task management space. So agent is particularly exciting. Within the sort of AI knowledge base, agent has a very, very particular word. It's an application of AI where the AI can actually go out and do the work. So if the task is book a ticket to Cancun, the AI agent can actually go and book that ticket to Cancun. So imagine having an AI task list where the AI task list not only compiles the list, but actually does the list too. And then it obviously opens questions of like, well, what do they need me for at that point? But it's an exciting area. So if you see reference to AI agents, this is what we're talking about. Okay. All right. I'm going to take a pause. If you want to flip cameras on and give me a wave and let me know you're still with me, that would be great. And we're going to go into sort of a quick hands-on portion. All right. I see you all. Thank you. Thank you. Let's get into this. So I'm going to start with a little walkthrough of Ambient. I'm going to show you how my company uses Ambient. And then we're going to give the opportunity for the folks on the line to put hands-on product to try summoning a mass AI assistant summoning to this meeting, which we don't know what's going to happen, but let's do this. Okay. So I'm going to flash you my company Ambient, my Ambient instance, and so this is how Taylor and I run our business. So the first thing that you'll see when you open up Ambient is you see what's called an Eisenhower matrix. Can I see any head nods from people that know what I'm talking about with Eisenhower matrix? Okay, I see a lot. One of the crazy things about the chief of staff is that everybody knows the Eisenhower matrix. It's a framework for triaging, prioritizing work. It's a 2x2 by urgency and importance. What are some of the things that I can do with this? Well, I can manage due dates. I'm not going to get to the notary today or tomorrow. I'm going to push that out until Friday. I can say, you know what, Cooley, you're going to have to wait for this. I'm going to slide this over. It's still important to me, but it's not urgent. I can say, you know what, this CSA partnership convos, let me assign that over to my friend Taylor, who's going to take this one. So Taylor, this one's coming over to you. So as I do that, it disappears from my board and shows up on Taylor's. So this is air traffic control tower. I'm routing, I'm triaging, I'm prioritizing. My personal workflow, I use the blue box for everything I'm going to do before I go to sleep. I use the pink box for the really dial moving stuff that typically takes a little while. So everybody has their own way to apply these Eisenhower matrices. And I'm going to show you one more view here where I mentioned this idea of an AI backstop. And so we have a list view of the same data, and you can see this created by list. I've actually had a fairly easy day where I think I've had only 7 or 8 tasks that I haven't knocked out, but these are getting pulled in automatically. I have a call, Ambient is pulling out the tasks, it's putting it on my list. I get to the end of the day and I just start banging them out, and I hit done and it disappears and it feels good. And I crank through my list. And so in the olden days, and I got to find a way to undo that done because I need to do that task. In the olden days, I'd be going through notes, and I know this sounds familiar. What do I even have to do as my follow-ups? It's 6 o'clock at night, it's 7 o'clock at night, it's 9 o'clock at night. What has to go to Taylor? What has to go in my CRM? What has to go to my team? What are the emails I have to send? What are the documents I have to send out? And just building that list would take me time. And now I just automatically get that list with the assistance of AI. All right. So where are these tasks coming from? Well, they're coming from meetings. And so let me see here. Let me find a good summary. Yeah, let me find a good summary. Let's go to my staff meeting. And so Taylor runs this. It's our daily stand-up. You see, you get AI notes, you get access to the transcript, you get access to the recording according to your data deletion policies. They're wearing the same clothes, so you can see that it's the same day. And then you get this structured list of action items, and you can see what they are. They're all assigned to people, and those all roll up into the dashboard. So the flow is you summon Ambient to your meeting, and it works the same with Fireflies, with Grain. Ambient does its thing, generates a transcript, wraps the transcript in the prompting, sends it to OpenAI, gets back a list of stuff to do, surfaces it into the Eisenhower matrix, and nags you to get it done. So that's the flow. It's pretty simple. I'm going to share one more thing before we try this together. And so this is a new feature that we launched called Meeting Series. And the idea is if you connect your calendar to Ambient, Ambient can detect what are the meetings that are happening on a recurring basis, your staff meetings, your project meetings, your one-on-ones. And we can actually build a knowledge base for that series. So I just showed you an example summary from this morning's stand-up. Well, that summary is part of a series. And the series, the AI has now looked at this series, weeks and weeks of data, and it has generated a cheat sheet for me, in this case for Taylor, to help him run a better meeting. So the first thing that you see when you look at this page is you see AI insights about the series. So this is that whole zoom out. Let's use our superhuman AI eyes and look at everything for the last 6 months. And let's give you the 3 things you need to know. In this case, it's topics, it's blockers, it's decisions to be made. And so this is your AI assistant that's sitting on your shoulder, that has godlike powers, that's looking back over the history and saying, I'm here with you to help you run a better meeting. The second component here is just a rolling list of the action items and next steps coming from that meeting series. So maybe it's something from yesterday. Maybe it's something from 6 months ago that Jason said he was going to do, but somehow it hasn't gotten knocked off yet. And it's at Taylor's fingertips to say, hey, Jason, you said you were going to get this thing done on the 8th. Like, what's going on? What's going on? And so it's everything you need to know at your fingertips. And then the last component is just access to the archive. So do you want to go back in time? Do you want to look at February 5th? Do you want to pull up the transcript? Do you want to watch the recording? All of the assets, again, the recording is only available if your policies allow it to be available, but all of the assets at your fingertips. And so the cool thing with this feature, the reason we built this feature is I spoke to many of you, actually a number of the folks on the call. It sounds like most people are running this process with a giant Google Doc or a giant OneNote or a giant Notion doc where they keep all the things they need to know to facilitate a meeting, the notes, the next steps, the action items in a giant never-ending Google Doc. Well, now stop writing that doc. Ambient will do it all for you. Okay. All right, let me take a pause. Here we go. We're going to put hands on product. And so I will say that Taylor and I have had a couple of emergency meetings with our team to figure out what's going to happen when a whole bunch of people connect at the same time. And we're going to set a record for the number of AI assistants on a single call at once. So that is what we're going for, the Guinness Book of World Records. So the first thing that I'm going to do, and so one thing I'll say, just putting on my information security hat, is that you do not have to use your work email address here. You can use a personal email address until you get sort of the green light from IT. We're obviously not talking about any confidential. None of your company's data is in this meeting, so it should be fine. But I put it up to you of sort of which email you use. And so the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to put a chat in the app. I'm going to put a link in the chat. And so for the folks that don't want to go along, you can follow along with me and we can do it together. And so if you hit that link, oh my gosh, I mistyped the link. Sorry. This is why copy paste was invented. And so if you hit that link, it will ask you for an email address, and then we will send you a magic link to get you into Ambient. And so let's see, maybe I can get a visual show of hands when we have some folks getting in. And so it should be pretty straightforward. Magic link to your email, you tap on that, and then you're in. And so the first thing that I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to show you where to connect your calendar. And so you can disconnect. There's a couple of options there. So in the top right-hand side, once you are in, you should see an option to connect calendar. And maybe someone give me a thumbs up that they see that. Perfect. Pauline, I'm looking at you because you're front and center for me. Perfect. And so I'm going to share my screen and show you what the options will be if you connect your Google or Outlook calendar. We give you a couple of different levels. So you can connect calendar for everything, which is what I do, which means that your Ambient assistant will show up at all of your meetings. We can detect any meeting on your calendar. Some of our advanced customers are putting meeting links on their calendar that they have no intention to go to, so they can be in multiple places at the same time. But what I would recommend for the folks on this call that are doing this, choose this option, which is only join calendar events that I own. This will give you some more control over where Ambient is showing up. And then you can always disconnect your calendar with one tap. So nothing you are doing today is undoable. Okay. Can I get a thumbs up that connecting calendar is looking pretty good? All right. I'm going to give our system 1 second to sort of process new calendars. And I'm going to show you one other feature that we didn't talk about, which is we have a little Slack summarizer. And I don't know, any Slack users out there? Okay. I see some hands on. And so the problem with Slack is that it's often very noisy. And so if you tell Ambient a couple of channels that you care about, we will post a daily digest of what's happening in those channels. And so the idea is you go here to your account settings, you choose Slack, you choose the channels that you're interested in, and we will include those in a daily digest. And so my flow is I grab my coffee in the morning. I'm on calls all day, so I'm missing the things that are happening in the engineering channels, and I get caught up. And in 5 minutes, I'm cut off of all the key stuff that's happening in Slack. Okay. Now we're going to get to the exciting, we don't know what's going to happen. So what I'm going to do is, if you look on the left-hand side of your Ambient screen, you will see a link that says record, transcribe, and summarize your meetings. Invite with a meeting link. Anyone see that? It's on the left-hand side in the sidebar at the bottom. Yep. Anybody see that? Can you get a thumbs up? Left-hand side, invite with. So it's called our on-demand method for summon an Ambient. In the chat, if you copy that link and paste it into the window, I don't know, Taylor, if you want to share screen to show kind of like what this looks like, it will summon an Ambient assistant on your behalf to this meeting. So, all right, okay, we have some guests arriving here. My goodness, here we go. All right, we're going to start letting our friends in here. The AI has arrived. I, for one, salute our AI overlords. So we're admitting. Here we go. And so the thing that you need to know, this is actually very oddly beautiful and exciting. The thing you need to know is if you are not the host, you have to ask the host to admit your Ambient bot. And then there's a second level where the host has to give permission to record. And this is part of Zoom or Microsoft's or Google Meet's terms of service, where we have to enable the bots. And you can see permission was just given. We have more friends arriving. And so I bet you all could tell me exactly what is happening right now, but I'll refresh it for the folks that missed the bit. You now know the architecture of these services. So Ambient is recording the meeting. As soon as this meeting ends, or as soon as Taylor kicks out the army of bots, don't do it yet, it is going to generate a transcript. It is going to wrap that transcript in our special prompting, and it is going to deliver to you, the folks who are using Ambient, a nice series of assets, an Eisenhower matrix, a list of tasks, AI notes, access to the transcript, access to the recording. And it all happens in the background. And so one next step for you, Taylor, is when you have a moment, can you please kick out all of the bots? All right, this is so much fun. And for anyone that's experienced errors out there, it's not typically that we'll get like 4 for bots in the same second. Maybe it seems to be holding up just fine. And so we are going to start kicking out bots even as new bots arrive. And so the next thing that's going to happen, let's kick out all the bots so that I can also get a draft here to play with. And so right now the magic is happening. It's sort of so crazy to think about what's happening right now. So software is generating a transcript, the prompting, the spell, the book of spells is being applied to that transcript. It's going off to an AI model, GPT-4, that is already outscoring humans in most of the organized tests, the MCAT, the LSAT, that is improving about 4x every year. This AI entity is processing our transcripts, and it is sending us back a series of assets to have a better meeting, to help us drop fewer balls, to help us execute better. So all that is in real time right now. All right, so let's give things a second. Take our first questions here right now. Let's make sure that we haven't crushed the Ambient servers and AWS hasn't gone down.
Okay, well, this is so fun. I also wanted to share with people that there's an option. You can do this with anybody in a meeting. You can do this with your Ambient bot too. There's an option to remove that video. So if you don't love seeing Ambient as part of this meeting and you just want to focus, like in this meeting, I'm just focusing on Lawrence and Taylor and I guess my video, you can just click the upper right of the tile of the video. If you're a host, you can do that and click stop video and Ambient will continue to record. So just kind of a housekeeping thing, once you start using this, if you don't want that, Ambient is here too. Video, stop the video, they're still in the meeting. So like Lawrence said, this is time for questions about anything that Lawrence covered today. So feel free to pop them in the chat. If you'd like to come off mute, you can do that too. I don't know if we have a hand raise function in Zoom meetings, but we'll give it a minute here.
Yeah.
Integrations.
Yeah, great question. So, but before we jump into the questions, I got to tell you, Ambient OpenAI, it's done. It finished its work, and so it's that fast. It is not human-like in its ability to process this amount of data. And so, for those of you that are playing along at home, what you should see in your sidebar is a little drafts counter. If you tap on that, now there's a reason we use the word draft, because only you have access. Remember that term human in the loop? You're going to get a chance to put eyes on this before it goes into your repository, part of the company record, to make sure that if you want to one tap publish, you can do that. And if you want to say, you know what, I don't want anybody else to ever see this, or you can leave it available to your team. But what you're able to do is to go through a quick editing process. You can give this a tag. So I'm going to give this public speaking. You see the nice tight AI summary. Oh, wow. It looks like I got a bunch of action items. And so what I would do is I would process these, give them to myself. And then I'm just going to say, you know what? I'm going to give myself a couple of days and then I'm done. And so now all of these action, and one of the things I like to do is just pull up the mini matrix and just start kind of routing these, right? I hit save changes. That is now in my company feed, available to my team, available to anybody who is on the calendar invite. I go up to my dashboard and my list of tasks has just gotten crushed. That's okay. I can clear them out in a bit. And so, yeah, that's the flow. Anybody playing along at home? Anybody see the drafts, the counter pop up?
Give it a thumbs up in the chat if you are. Yep, we're seeing it. Okay, Lawrence, question for you from my Ambient use for everybody. We know that we can invite people from our own team, from our own company. What does it look like when I invite somebody to view my published summary who's not in my own company? What does it look like to them?
That's a great question. So in this case, I'll show you the sharing process. So what you basically do is you put them on the allow list. So I will do Maggie. I already have you in here. I'll send it to your Nova Chief of Staff. I hit save. And then Maggie is going to get an email from us any second. And it basically, if Maggie can prove she is Maggie with the email address that we put into the share list, she will have full access to the tasks. She will have full access to the notes, and she will have full access to the video and the transcript. I use this as a way to sort of like keep my external partners honest. So if like my external partners say they're going to do something, it shows up on an ambient task. I share it, and then the next time I talk to them, I can say, you know what, here it is. So yeah, there it is. We don't disclose anything confidential in the email blurb, but if Maggie logs in, she'll have full access to that summary.
Okay, and if I'm not already a user of Ambient, I just have to, do I have to sign up for Ambient to be able to see the summary, or can I see the summary without signing up for Ambient?
We do have the we have the concept. If you stop sharing for a second, I can share a way to share a public link. And I'll put this in the chat so you all can see it. So if I go into AI note taking, there's a share button up here. And then I'm going to generate a public link. I'm going to copy this. And then I'm going to put this in the chat. And so what you don't get with the public link, for discovery reasons, you don't get access to the video. I don't believe you get access to the transcript. And you don't get access to the task. I think right now you just get the AI notes. Is that right, Taylor?
That's right.
Nice.
Yeah. So it's the same ambient interface that you've been showing. It's what we've been seeing this whole hour, but it's just a little bit of a limited summary since it's not internal. So, okay, cool. I think that's helpful as people start onboarding, since they're going to be sharing their meeting summaries with other people.
Oh, Maggie, I love this question from Claire Dunham. Is the prompting that enables the task to be identified? Yes, yes, and yes. And so where your mind is probably going, which is where ours is going, is like, we can not only generate structured lists of tasks, we can generate structured lists of open questions, of blockers, a decision log. We can generate structured lists of anything that you like, anything your heart desires. Like in our world, feature requests, blockers. These are all things that would, imagine if you had a running list on your customer calls of feature requests, how helpful that would be. So the question for us is just small team. We're zeroed in on one persona: chief of staff, senior EA, head of ops, people that are living cross-departmental, aspiring chief. And so we're focused on the structured list of those personas. But yes, we can generate lists of anything.
Okay, well, let me go through some of these questions, Lawrence. Do you want to read them, or do you want me to throw them at you?
No, why don't you choose the ones? Let's do it live. Why don't you choose the ones you want to answer?
Okay, and Taylor is jumping in and
you
answering
want me to answer?
but I think we can, a lot of them, I think we can do public, like verbally as well. So are we able to talk to the AI tool to draft up an email with the details discussed in the meeting?
I can take this one.
I love it. Oh, go ahead, Taylor. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, so it's not something that's native to Ambient, but it's in that bucket of what Lawrence was talking about, of AI agents doing tasks on your behalf. And so you can think about Ambient already doing one task, which is notes, capturing action items. And then another question asked about integration. So we integrate with a tool called Zapier. And Zapier connects to almost every piece of software you probably use today. One of those is Gmail and Outlook. And so you can actually have Ambient create a draft email, and you can port in the meeting notes. You can even put in action items into a draft email and have that ready to go. And I actually just read an article today where you can also do things like create calendar events based off of some kind of data. So thinking about Ambient as this webbing between the meeting and the systems you use every day, and starting to automate those workflows. I think more and more you'll see us do more of those natively, just to make it super seamless. But even today, you can wire up together some pretty interesting Zapier recipes. So that might be a fun follow-on webinar to do some spell binding.
Okay, I'm going to go through these because we don't have a lot of time left. So what if a meeting series is Yeah, go ahead,
Yeah,
Lawrence.
sorry, one more quick comment. This idea of AI agent where I need to send an email to Maggie, write me the email to Maggie and then send it for me. Like it's not that far away. Sorry, go ahead, Maggie.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Okay, I may have lost that one, but we'll come back to it. Let's see. So for calendar events, was there an option to select only certain meetings as a one-off in some meetings, but not all of them where I am the host? Did we cover that?
Yeah, and I'll kind of drill that one real quick.
Okay.
Sorry, Lawrence. Um, so we connect through the calendar integration you saw, and you can choose all the events you own or participate or neither. It's very, very blunt and broad. And as you saw, you can also summon bots on a one-off basis, but we want to shade in that middle. So exactly that feedback, we're actually working on this feature today. So we'll show you your calendar and we'll visualize for you which events we plan to show up to and which ones we're not, and you will have a toggle to go meeting by meeting.
Okay. Can you add multiple
Yeah.
email accounts at one time? I have multiple. Can they all be connected to Ambient?
You want me to take that one, Lawrence?
Sure. I think my internet's a little spotty.
It is.
Go ahead, Tim.
Yes. So yeah, we only support one calendar integration. I know this was in the context of, maybe you're working with several clients across different units, different accounts. The way we've worked with other chiefs and fractional chiefs who do this is they have one account for themselves that they get added to events. So if you have that one email address that's added as a participant to 4 different client events, we can show up to those, but you can only use one calendar account for now.
Okay. I love this question. So, and I think Lawrence helped me with this early on, but what if a meeting series is hybrid? Sometimes it's virtual, sometimes it's in person. How do we make sure Ambient is capturing all of it?
Yeah, so long as you bring Ambient into that meeting, I was just on a call today with the same question. Some people are virtual, some people are in person. For the folks that are in person, they're going to be dialing in somebody else using Zoom, Teams, or Meet. And so long as Ambient is also on the call, it still works really well. The thing that you miss is what's called diarization, speaker diarization. So the ability to parcel out who said what, that becomes very difficult when you have a room full of 5 people speaking over each other. And that's difficult for every meeting recorder today, but that's definitely going to be something that will be worked on over time.
Okay, and just to add, let's say that you have a meeting and you don't add a Zoom link because you know it's going to be in person. So you've got 5 execs, yourself at a meeting. You can just start a Zoom meeting, summon your AI bot, and it will capture the meeting, even if everybody else doesn't have the Zoom link, right, Taylor?
Yes, yeah, that's right.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's a cool feature. So when I use the use case of like, I need to transcribe this presentation, I'm going to bring my AI bot in to transcribe that for me. Does that sound like a good use case? Maybe
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And I do that for myself at the end of the day. Sometimes I'll just open it up in a meeting and just speak to it just to get all my thoughts, feedback, things I need to get done down. And it's almost like a personal transcriber.
Okay. Amazing. Interrupt me if you guys want to jump into something else, but can you PDF? Can we export to PDF on anything like this?
Yeah, you can. So you can open up the page. It's a really beautiful page, the meeting summary with action summary. And you just have to right click print and then generates a PDF super fast.
Okay, awesome. And can my AI bot be in 2 places at once? Can I double book a meeting and have it go to both?
It can be in 20 places at once.
Really?
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah, as long as you tell Ambient where to go, you are not tied to just one meeting bot. You can have as many as you want. So you just got to tell it where to go and when. That's it.
I am learning new things on this. This is super, super cool. Anybody want to come off mute and ask another question? I think I've got to most of these that were mainstream questions. Yes, on the selecting only certain meetings, you can also kick your AI bot out. I've been on meetings where someone's like, I'm just not comfortable with it yet. I still need some things to learn. Perfect. You can totally remove them. And like I said, you can hide their video too.
Yeah.
But no matter what, the person on the other end is gonna be told they're being recorded. So like, it's not a surprise to anybody if your AI bot is there. They're still a participant on the list, even if their video is not showing on the tile.
one thing for you, Maggie, because you were early on in our journey, and I know the feedback around turning the video is important. We have that feature in development right now, so you can have it turn off automatically once it's joined and it's in a good state. It's
Cool.
all in service of making it kind of like put it in the background and let it do its thing while you focus on the conversation. So I appreciate
Cool.
that feedback. I want to make sure you knew that that's coming.
My OTD friends will get it. It's yeah, I like it clean and just the people chatting, and so I usually turn it off, but I love the functionality of Ambient. So okay, well, I think okay, last question here. Are there words and phrases I can use to train my team to help Ambient flag action items and decisions made? Wow, Rena, you are like ahead of the curve here. Such a good question.
Yeah, and I actually wrote a post and have a recording I can put in there as well. We've been using this technology for 10 months straight, and it has shifted how I conduct meetings. And it's like I talk to people, I say AI is like a mirror holding it up to yourself. Whether you're an AI listening or you have somebody taking the notes, if a clear owner is not mentioned, there's no clear date, nobody's going to get the right information. That's what leads to dropped balls. And so things that I've learned is the more direct you are, say, I'm going to take this as an action item to do this tomorrow. That translates beautifully into the action assigned to me and the due date set to tomorrow.
Yeah, as a user, I've misheard or not heard clearly acronyms, or I think another example was a country in India that I didn't know of. Ambient got it for me. I could just pop into Ambient and I was like, oh, that's the country she said. It's so cool. So pretty awesome. All right, we're gonna stop it here. You all hopefully know how to reach all of us. We are available. We will send this out after the call. We'll send a recording of this. Lawrence, Taylor, any final words for this group? We're gonna go with Taylor here. Lawrence is having some technical difficulties.
All right, Taylor, over to you.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you all for your time and attention and for the really thoughtful questions. This is so much fun. And thank you, Maggie, for helping out organize.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks everybody. Have a wonderful day. And this was fun. Have fun with Ambient.